Question from Rob, random question. Appreciate random questions on the program. Do you guys think the outcome of the Wolves playoff result will dictate whether or not Ant will ask out in the offseason? The 3-6 matchup, Lakers-Wolves. I am very excited for this one just because of not just the star power in this, but I think this could tilt it can tilt in two very different directions.
Yeah.
Like there's a world where with the Lakers, like the creativity is just too much. The late game execution is just on point. It's not just LeBron and Luka, but it's also Austin Reeves. And you have maybe Gabe Vincent and Dorian Finney-Smith hitting enough 3-point shots, just holding the defense enough together. Also Rui Hachimura. And then there's another world where the Timberwolves almost kind of grind them down and make it very difficult to get some of these shots off. I do have questions about who guards who from a Minnesota perspective as it relates to the Lakers. And then you have like just this world where, all right, what the Rudy Gobert piece, what does that look like? Is Anthony Edwards going to have to go off in this series, or is it better if he does not? Like there's just a lot of questions I have with this series. So what's your approach as it pertains to Lakers Wolves, and what are the things that you're keying in on the most?
Minnesota 10-15 versus top 10 offenses. That feels relevant that they haven't. Now, their numbers are good in those games. They have the 5th best offense, 13th best defense in those games versus top 10 offenses. Now, but think about that slide for Minnesota from a top 5 defense to 13th against those top 10 offenses. That's huge because, and my starting, I am working through to make sure, doing my deep dive work today on it. What I will say is, my first initial thing was I don't see fundamentally how this matchup is different than Mavericks Wolves last year. A lot of people have mentioned like, hey, you don't have the lob threat of Gafford and Lively. Jackson Hayes, I think, is good at those, but you're right. That's true. What I do think is that you have more reliable 3-point corner shooters in Rui Hachimura and Dorian Finney-Smith. And you do have a secondary playmaker in LeBron James, who is going to be at an advantage in most times. I'm going to be very curious to see if they put LeBron and Randall. And if they're just like, hey, you're going to have to play like the physical, I know you're 40, but you're going to have to deal with this like absolute just bull of a player who's so strong and physical. Or if LeBron's like, no, thanks. I'm not taking Randall. I'm taking Jaden McDaniels. And if that's the case, Jaden's going to get a lot of cuts and slips and corner threes because LeBron falls asleep helping up in those situations. I don't know why, but he cannot help himself drifting up in those corner situations where he should just be staying home.
He still wants the steals to go coast to coast and dunk. That's what it is.
Right. And so like a good question also is, all right, if they put 2 on ball with Ant, if they play hedge with his primary defender, Dorian Finney-Smith and Jackson Hayes, and they play at the level to try and blitz Ant, who Ant's seen a lot of that coverage and he's gotten really good at passing out of it. That's a spot where like LeBron having to play that weak side zone versus the dunker spot and the corner is about as good as you're going to get. Like they have such, and not just LeBron, Dorian Finney-Smith and Rui, that trio of forwards is as good as you're going to find with that weak side zone if you put 2 on ball. So to me, that winds up being like a very interesting question of like their ability to neutralize, I think, the Wolves offense versus a defense that I still think we're figuring out. There was a stretch there where the Lakers defense looked amazing. And there's a stretch there where the Lakers defense looked horrible. If Rudy Gobert could hit a hook shot, I'd feel differently about this series, but he can't. Like a lot of this just comes down to like, do you think Julius Randle is going to be able to average 18 to 24 points in this series? And if you don't, based off of his long history of suffering in the playoffs,
I don't.
Then you got to go Lakers here because they don't have anybody for Luka. Anybody. Like we singled this out last year. I started betting Dallas Mavericks to make the finals when they got past the Oklahoma City Thunder. That was the minute I started hitting that consistently on Buckets, our podcast of the Action Network, was look, the Wolves are elite defensively. They do not have a matchup here. Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Anthony Edwards are too small. So Luka's able to back you down in ISO, get to that mid-post area where he can hit the one-legged fadeaways and the up and unders and then all these kind of counter moves. They don't have an option for it. There's no counter. Even if they do good in the pick and roll, which I don't think they will, if they keep Rudy out of the switches, if they manage to execute at level effectively with Rudy, even if they do that, Luka's going to adjust by just ISOing. And there's no real counter for that. So to me, this is the best unit on the floor is the Wolves defense. It is, but not in this matchup. In this matchup, the best unit's going to be the Lakers offense. And then it's probably going to be the Wolves offense. And then it's going to be the Lakers defense. And then it's going to be the Wolves defense. And when the Wolves strength is made into the worst weakness in this matchup, I got no choice but to go towards the Lakers.
We have a question here from Jokic's prime is being wasted. Thank you for the comment. How important is Dante DiVincenzo, who hasn't been awesome against the Lakers this year? Is he a swing piece for you in this series at all?
Yeah, so a lot of this is what the Lakers give up is above the break threes. That's actually what they give up more of. They're very good at closing out to the corners because of that weak side zone stuff that I talked about. The best above the break shooter on the Minnesota Timberwolves is Dante DiVincenzo. He's been terrific in that area. So you've got kind of this opportunity for them to be able to hit a lot of those kind of threes. I actually bet Dante to lead the series in 3-pointers made because I think that he's going to have a huge part of the series. Now, if he's able to hit in those second unit matchups, I think you've got a real opportunity here. But one of the problems is like Dante is not a switch hunter. That's not what he does. Conley's not a switch hunter. It's not what he does. Ant can, but they're not going to give it to him. Right? You need guys that are going to be like, I'm going to force Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic into this action. I'm going to put them in these pick and roll actions and I'm going to punish them for it. They don't have a lot of those guys. Ant's the only one and they'll just blitz him. So they're not going to have an opportunity to do that. So to me, I wind up on the other side of this where it's like, I think Dante's going to have a really great offensive series. And I think he'll have a lot of opportunities because of the amount of attention they'll have to generate towards Ant and the size on the interior. But I do think that like Dante's going to have a good series relative to other guys, but it's more about the other guys are going to struggle. I do think Dante's going to be a big factor in the series, though.
We have a follow-up. Same commenter. Thank you. I hope you're not actually Calvin Booth. That'd be funny. We have what if they let Luka have his and put McDaniels on Reeves and rotate fresh defenders on Reeves to wear him out like Neil Alexander-Walker and Jalen Clark. That is an interesting strategy because as you just touched on, and we hit this last year, McDaniels was going to be the guy who guards Luka, and we were like, he's too small. He's not going to do it. So does Minnesota just decide to take the L on that and is like, all right, you can bother Reeves instead. Luka can do what he wants to do, and then from there you have these other matchups that you can sort of sort through and maybe manage better.
It's a great strategy. Coaches never go for it. Even Finch, who I think is excellent. If you ask me to build a strategy for against Luka Doncic, and look, Chris Finch knows about it 7 million times more about basketball than I do, but just based off of the work that I've done studying this stuff, my genuine strategy would be in the first half of these games for 2.5 quarters, you play drop coverage and you go, if you want that mid-range pull up, you got it, buddy. Go for it. We're not switching. We are not switching. We're coming over the top. You can isolate. You can score on your own. We're staying home on everybody. You're not getting lobs. And you're not getting corner 3-point shots. You're not getting them to shooters. You could take them all you want. If you want to score 50 in the first half, go for it. After 2.5 quarters, you blitz him. You blitz him over and over and over again. You send hard doubles at him in isolation and force him to make those passes to shooters who have not touched the ball for 36 minutes. That's the objective there, is you take everybody else out of rhythm by telling Luka you can have one of the best playoff games of your career, then you blitz him. But Chris Finch won't go for it. They won't do it. They're going to put their best defender on Luka Doncic, and he's going to get cooked. And that is what they will do, because you never want to get so far away from your game plan that your team thinks that you don't have confidence in them. Once that confidence starts to erode, everything falls sideways. So that's the reason they won't do it.
I don't see myself picking against the Lakers in this series. One of the things that I'm really thinking about as it pertains to this particular series is Rudy Gobert, who I think is going to be one of the most watched players in the series for obvious reasons. We've been doing this for years. And I guess where I'm at with Rudy Gobert at this point is what kind of a Rudy Gobert series are we actually expecting here? Is this he dominates the paint series because the Lakers don't have a ton of size? Or is this a series where they're going to spread him out and he's going to struggle to close out on shooters? And then people are saying that he's getting played off the floor in the playoffs again, which some people would say is overstated. But I think it's something that will be discussed in this series, particularly with Luka Doncic and LeBron James and Austin Reeves on the other side.
Something that Rudy doesn't get enough credit for is that he does actually attack his weaknesses. He doesn't just sit there and have these weaknesses and be like, no, I'm gonna play my game. That's not what he does. The criticism was, hey, you can't switch, so he got better at switching. Hey, you can't play at level, so he got better at level. Hey, we're gonna put you in the corner and space you out. He's gotten better at those rotations, but there's only so much you can do. That corner rotation, when you have to help down and recover, it's the hardest thing in the NBA right now. You just can't get there. You just can't. No one can manage that space. You can't really help in the paint and show to prevent a layup attempt and then run all the way out to a corner three. Ball's faster than the man. So it's an impossible situation. And I do think that eventually they're going to get to that spot where it's like, yeah, they're going to play LeBron at 5. Now, the question is like, is LeBron going to be okay if they put Rudy on LeBron and they space LeBron? Is LeBron going to be okay spacing to the corner? LeBron's probably going to be like, give me the ball, I'll attack him in ISO.
Yes.
And you can do that. Right. But is that like your best tactic? Is that maximizing your offense? And so like, I'm curious about what Redick's going to do, because JJ's most likely, because he knows the consequences, to be like, go get him, LeBron, go get him. And if he does that, it's fine. You can't switch is the thing with him on Luka. You can't do it. You cannot. If they do that, then they're already sunk. If they put themselves in situations where they're like, we can't prevent the switch, you got no shot.
But you know, JJ Redick, like that's what he's going to.
Yep.
That's the number one thing he's going to try to exploit.
But I will say this: JJ doesn't get that call. Luka gets that call. Luka gets to dictate what switch he hunts. And I'll tell you this: Luka is not a serial killer the way some guys are, where they're like, I'm going to hunt down the weakest matchup and I'm going at you every single time. Shai's a little bit of a serial killer. Shai's like, I know you can't guard me. Nope, come back, get back over here. Nope, I don't care if you're guarding my shooting guard. He's setting a screen, right? Cade, little bit of a serial killer. He's like, nope, get back over here.
Jimmy Butler does this too, actually.
Come here, little bunny. Like every single time, that's what they're hunting. Luka, because of, I think, his hubris, is oftentimes like, no, I want the best defender. No, I want the best defender on me, and I'll show you. And it works because Luka's awesome, but like that's the decision that he makes a lot of the time.
Right.
When they were facing some of these different matchups, I was always like, why are you not hunting this guy? And it was like Luka trying to get the hardest defender he could on him to attack. Now, maybe JJ gets through to him and is like, hey, man, we can win a title. Will you just put Rudy in the action? Like, just do that. But the other thing I do think is you're going to see them play drop. Luka doesn't have a pull-up J. He doesn't. He's got a dribble jumper, a post-up jumper. He's got so many moves. Doesn't have that 2 dribble off the pick pull-up jumper. He's not quick enough, so it gets blocked from behind. So if he figures that out and he goes to it, or if he figures out a longer floater that's just automatic, then you're dead. But you got to kind of live with that. So I'm just going to be very curious to see who they put Rudy on and how they use those kind of interactions, because I think it's going to be a big part of the ways that the Lakers can solve this. The problem is just like, there are so few teams, I think, that can solve the Wolves this way. And the Lakers are one of them. They have the ability, because of their ball handlers, talent, and shooting, to do this.
Yeah. And I think the Lakers low-key got I wouldn't say favorable bracket to disrespect the Wolves and the Rockets, but favorable, and potentially who the Rockets play, but favorable from the standpoint of just matchups aren't terrible for them.
One last note: since the trade, the Lakers are 7-4 versus top 10 defenses, with the 10th best defense and the 3rd best offense. These are the teams that they hurt. So yeah, I like Lakers here.
6?
5.
Yeah, I was thinking 5 or 6. I don't think it's 7.
Here's what sucks is I think if the Wolves got in a different bracket, if they got the Wolves, or if they got the Nuggets bracket 4-5, and then we're able to then turn around and go Thunder, I think they can make the Western Conference Finals. This is what sucks, is they just got the worst bracket for them.
Question from Rob, random question. Appreciate random questions on the program. Do you guys think the outcome of the Wolves playoff result will dictate whether or not Ant will ask out in the offseason?
No, I think it's too early. I think Ant has, they've shown they can build a winner around him. They made the conference finals last year. I think even with his frustrations, the ownership thing being settled, their willingness to make moves, to be like, yeah, we're going to disrupt this. And I think one of the things that's been important is Ant has gotten to watch. He didn't understand why they traded for Rudy Gobert. He was pissed when they did it. He was like, you just made the playoffs.
That's right.
We just made the playoffs. We have Memphis right where we wanted them. no, like, what are we doing? And then it worked out, and he was like, okay, I guess,
Fine.
I guess Rudy's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then they trade Cat for Julius Randle, and he's like, what the fuck? Like, we just made the Western Conference Finals, and now they're back in the playoffs and pretty dangerous. And he's like, oh, okay, all right. So
I don't think he asks out if they lose in 5 or 6, but I mean, I do think there are more questions because this is coming off the euphoria of last year.
I mean, look, I think we're headed there. He's going to be gone eventually. That's just how it works in the NBA. I hate it, but
and in Minnesota,
happen, but I don't think it happens this summer.
No, not this summer. It's too early. All right, let's quickly do Pacers Bucks.